Hijack is back with episode 5, and I think it's safe to say that this was most definitely the most tense episode that we've had in the season so far. Titled Less Than an Hour, those words held such importance, but ultimately amounted to nothing in the end. With a couple of more casualties and another potential one looking like it could be on the cards, let's recap, break down, and explain all that there was to take away from this episode. So let's get into it. Here is Hijack episode 5, Ending Explained. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. If you enjoyed this video, then be sure to hit subscribe. Thanks. As this episode opened up, we saw that it continued on directly after episode 4, where we saw that a set of demands were put in place for the safe return of the passengers. The demand was to essentially let Edgar and John walk free from prison from their 35-year sentence in order for the passengers to be released, otherwise they would all be harmed. Something which the authorities wanted to wait a little while longer for, to see if they could work out how dangerous the individuals were. But after the ending and seeing the bodies in Dubai, they definitely saw that they were prepared to go to any lengths to get what they wanted. As well as that, Lewis was wounded and was in a critical condition, and he was basically only alive due to the fact that he had a biro that he was breathing through. This was what led to the master plan that we saw being unveiled by Sam. He realized that the co-pilot Anna could speak Hungarian, and by that point the plane was flying over Hungary, which meant that if Sam could persuade Stuart to land the plane by revealing that he knew that Lewis was his brother and tapping into his emotions in order to get him to agree to land the plane so that his brother could get help, it could essentially enable the plane to be swarmed by authorities, and at least put them in a better position because they'd be down on the ground, rather than 30,000 feet up in the air. This was something that we saw get carried out. With Anna being able to speak Hungarian, she alerted the ground control that there were hijackers that were still on the plane and that she wanted them to know that they were all still in grave danger. This was where the tension was coming from within the episode, because we didn't know whether or not the Hungarian ground control would let them land at the airport, but towards the end we saw that they were given permission to do so, but by then it was too late. Lewis had openly stated that he didn't want them to land in his dying breath, and with that, Stuart ran out the back to look at his brother and saw that the biro was no longer in him, assisting him with his breath, but instead it was in his hand, making it seem as though he pulled it out himself and ended it all because he didn't want to risk his brother being caught. However, I don't think that's the case at all. I think it was Terry who did it. With the look that Sam gave him and the slight look of shame that Terry had, it very much seemed like he was the individual that took matters into his own hands, as he originally didn't want the plane to land at all out of fear of what would happen to himself and his family if the plan wasn't carried out as was originally devised. He knew that the leaders of the organization that he was working for were extremely dangerous individuals, and he didn't want to face any repercussions. So with that, the plane ended up going back up to 30,000 feet, not landing in Hungary and continuing on its flight path back to the UK. So now they're only around 90 minutes away from where the UK ground control will be able to communicate with them, which is where I feel the show will get to its best, the government dealing directly with them. We also had some major revelations in this episode too, some which provided clarity to the story that hadn't been touched on for a few weeks. For example, all that was going on in Dubai. Back in episode 2 of the show, we saw that Neela was killed, and so was Abdullah, but there was no explanation as to why they were. For Abdullah, it was very much wrong place, wrong time, but for Neela and her family, there was something more sinister that was at play. We saw that the men that were in the blue cleaning suits were present in her house, and these same men were present in Sam's house in this episode of the show. This organized crime group spreads far and wide across the globe due to the narcotics network that it's connected to. The two individuals that were in Dubai were told to take out Neela and her partner as they were seen as unreliable. Neela was in on letting the hijackers onto the plane and pass through security, but they didn't trust her to keep her mouth shut moving forwards, so they thought it would just be easier to get rid of her. We heard how ruthless this group could be when we found out that they hired Terry to be a hitman to take out Lewis and Stuart's father when they thought that he disobeyed the group, when in actual fact he didn't. And now, with the hijackers sending Sam's passport details to them due to him being a passenger that was speaking up and had the potential to cause trouble, they were now around his house and were prepared to do anything to anybody that he cared about if something were to go wrong. With Kai being inside of his father's property and him noticing that the two people that entered had weapons, he appeared to hide, but I do wonder if that will stop the two individuals from finding him, as it didn't look like the largest of places. Another large revelation that we had was that Stuart and Lewis's mother, Elaine, was also in on the plan that was taking place with the organised crime group, or at least she knew about it. With Daniel going to her property and questioning her over the information that she knew, she ended up running off and standing on a motorway in front of a car, as she thought that was a far better way to go than most likely being tortured by the group. She suspected that they would have most likely seen Daniel entering the property and perceived her to be a snitch like they thought her husband was, and she didn't want to take her chances. So these people must be extremely evil and vile human beings if that's a better way to go. The episode finished with Kai looking as though he was found by the two men as they looked under the bed and pointed their weapon there, so I guess we'll have to wait until the next episode to see if Kai makes it out alive. Overall review. I thought this episode was a good one. It was definitely one of the better ones in the season due to the conversational tension that was forever present. I was on the edge of my seat not knowing if something was going to happen to any of the individuals on the plane, if it was going to land, or if Lewis would survive. I liked the fact that we got to see the story in Dubai become interconnected with what we were seeing going on in the plane, as before it felt like it was just left there and never really addressed, but it's all starting to make sense now and make the story even more gripping and connected. There was one part of the episode that I thought was a bit ridiculous though, and this was the bit in Dubai, where the neighbour's dog ran across the street into the house, up the stairs, and immediately to the door to the room which the bodies were in. I thought that was quite unbelievable and was tonally different to a lot of what we've seen in the show so far, with the next episode being titled Comply Slowly and the synopsis being faced with an impossible decision, the passengers ready themselves for a fight. I think next week has the potential to be a deadly episode if the passengers are looking to cause trouble on the plane. Stuart has now lost his brother, so I feel that's something that's definitely going to be playing on his mind a lot, as he was prepared to grind the entirety of the mission to a halt for him, and it may even cause others to undermine his authority, as he was originally the leader of the group on the plane, so maybe he may end up losing his voice amongst the others, which could weaken them as a unit, and cause the rest of the passengers to feel as though they're able to gain more confidence, and as the synopsis says, ready themselves for a fight. With only 2 episodes left, it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen and how this show is going to come to a natural, non-rushed resolution. I guess we'll just have to wait and see. So, there you have it, Hijack Episode 5 Ending Explained. If you want to see more videos such as Endings Explained, theories and predictions, and character breakdowns, then click on the I button, or alternatively you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. If you'd like to give me a show or movie that you'd like me to review, then head over to my Twitter, @BrainPilot_, and tweet me what show or movie you'd like me to review next. And finally, if you'd like to see what I rate the latest movies that don't quite make the cut to getting a dedicated video, then head over to my Letterboxd profile. It's where I rate the latest releases in real time. What did you think of this episode? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.